Here, quiz night tonight, including Uni Challenge, but now back into the classroom for a new week of lockdown learning. Hannah Fry's Mysterious World of Maths, coming up at 2. But first, another lunchtime lesson with Bitesize Daily for secondary.
Ni hao, you're on!
Oh my gosh. Okay, got microphone, earpiece. Okay, sorry, I'm late. Sorry everyone, sorry. Okay. It's Monday morning, and I've never been a big fan of Monday mornings. You'd think that at the moment we didn't have to worry about waking up, having breakfast, getting dressed. Still, school might be off, learning is not. So Bitesize Daily is officially open for business. Happy Monday, everyone. I'm Nihal Arthanaika, and welcome to Bitesize Daily. We like to think of this show as your study buddy when you can't be sat with your school pals, your reliable fixture in a time of cancelled plans. On hand, we've got teachers, experts, and some celebs to inspire you and supercharge your learning. The next hour is split into 3 20-minute chunks. We're starting with all you 11 and 12-year-olds, then it's time for 12 and 13-year-olds to get involved, and finally, it's all about you 13 and 14-year-olds. Here's what we've got in store today. The only way to kick your week off is with Motivational Monday. Our gurus will make sure you're pumped full of positivity for the week ahead. Then we'll get into some maths with the awesome Mr. Brown. For English, we're joined by the ever-enthusiastic Miss Morrison, and we're winding back the clock in our pick of the day subject, history. Plus, look out for the big read brought to you by some very special celebrities. Right, 11 and 12-year-olds, stick with me, because your fun starts now. Another week, another Monday. But wait, we know exactly how to pep you 11 and 12s up for the week ahead. It's Motivational Monday! Who better to put a smile on our faces and a spring in our steps than the brilliant Katie Thistleton? She's here with some tips on how to deal with disappointment and bounce back from setbacks.
Setbacks are something that I face all the time in my career. When you're a presenter or an actor or a writer, you're always going for jobs or auditions and then finding out that they gave the job to somebody else, and that can be really difficult. Nobody likes rejection. It's important, first of all, to say that it's okay to feel sad about that. So if you need to take a day to just watch your favourite comedy, eat some chocolate and feel a little bit sad, that's fine, that's totally normal. But then what I like to do is remind myself that that job wasn't for me for whatever reason. So move on to the next one. I will then make a list of all the things that I want to achieve. I love a list. Writing a list always makes me feel good and in control of my life. And then I will do something that makes me feel really good. So that might be sending an email to somebody, applying for another job. It might be reading a book. It might be learning something new. Or it could just be exercising, doing my hair and makeup, chatting to a friend, watching my favourite show. Just something that makes me feel really good and reminds me that there are so many brilliant things about my life, not just that one thing that you've had a setback from.
Thank you, Katie. Things don't always go as we planned or hoped, but learning from that experience and moving on with positivity is great advice. And it is with great positivity I'll move on to introduce our first teaching expert of the day, Mr. Brown, the font of all maths knowledge.
Thanks, Nihal. It's great to see you again.
So, what do we need to get the measure of today?
Well, today we're going to be looking at measures and the units of measurement.
Oh, handy. Hey, I've got a joke about measures. Want to hear it?
Yes, please.
Good, I'm glad you said that, because I was going to do it anyway. Actually, I'll tell you later. Get it? I'll tell you later. Later. Not OK, we'll crack on.
Yeah, I get it. All right, looks like you know some units of measurement already. You see, different things are measured in different units. So, for example, when measuring the length, width, or height of something, we can use millimetres, centimetres, metres, or kilometres. Now, we can measure the mass of an object, which is most commonly called the weight of an object, using milligrams, grams, kilograms, or tonnes. And finally, the measure of capacity, which is the amount something can hold, is commonly given in millilitres or litres.
OK, got it. Now, before we dig a bit deeper into the importance of choosing the right unit of measurement, have a look at this. And metres on the other side. It's like meters, but I'm saying meters. It's a pun. Yeah.
Standard units of measurement. Depending on what you want to measure, there are different units of measurement. For example, length can be measured in kilometres, metres, centimetres and millimetres. Mass can be measured in tonnes, kilograms, grams and milligrams. Capacity or volume is measured in litres, millimetres or sometimes cubic centimetres. Time is measured in years, days, hours, minutes and seconds. And speed is measured as a combination of units, such as kilometres per hour or metres per second. To make life less complicated, we often round everyday measurements to whole numbers using their significant figures. For the number 1,384, if we round to the first significant figure, 1, it becomes 1,000. Rounding to the second significant figure, 3, it becomes 1,400. And rounding to the third significant figure, 8, it becomes 1,380.
Right, Mr. Brown, I'm ready for more. What are we going to focus on now?
Well, we've seen there are different units of measurement for different things, but the trickiest bit is choosing the right unit and understanding the relationship between those units. So estimating is always a good first step.
So basically guesswork.
Yeah, but it's using a little bit of knowledge at the same time. So first, let's bring up the measurements for length again on the screen. Now, if you can, grab and open that tape measure.
Okay.
You can see there are 10 millimetres in every centimetre.
Yeah, I see that.
And there are 100 centimetres in every metre.
Yeah, I have that too. Cool. There are 1,000 of these metres in a kilometre, which makes sense because the word kilo actually means 1,000.
So when you estimate the size of something, you need to picture these measurements and pick the right unit. So you'd estimate how tall you are in...
Metres.
Yeah. Remembering that there are 100 centimetres in a metre gives you a good starting point to estimate height. So I'd say you're approximately 1.8 metres.
OK, well, let's have a look. Let's see how tall I am. Now, I seem to be 1 metre and around 77 centimetres.
I was close. In millimetres, that is 1,770 millimetres, which is way too big a number to estimate and use in everyday life.
Yeah, that's a lot of millimetres for sure. How about units of weight?
Now, to help estimate weight, what we need to do is need to know what they feel like.
OK.
So, a single grain of salt, for example, weighs less than a milligram. Now, if you pick up that sweet, that weighs a gram, and a gram is 1,000 times heavier than a milligram. Now, if you were able to hold 1,000 sweets, it would weigh 1 kilogram. What else do you know that weighs a kilogram?
Perhaps this non-branded generic bag of sugar?
Yeah, that is a 1 kilogram bag of sugar.
And let me guess, 1,000 of them would weigh 1 tonne?
That's right, a metric ton. Now you've got the hang of it, fancy testing your knowledge a little bit more? Let's play a little game I like to call What's My Unit? Now, what will happen, a picture will pop up on screen with a number below it. You have to guess the unit which follows the number. You have until you hear the klaxon.
Great! Why don't you play along at home too? Hit me with the first picture. Oof, 330 millilitres?
Excellent.
Ooh, 7,140 square metres.
Perfect.
Oh, OK. 5 milligrams?
Spot on.
Wow, marathon world record, that would be 2 hours, 1 minute and 39 seconds.
Excellent.
Yes! Big in the measurements game, that's what I am. It's a great way to practice estimating the size, weight or volume of something and then choosing the correct unit of measurement. What did you think, Mr. Brown? I think I did pretty well. In fact, one might say I was kiloing it. Head to the Bitesize website for tons more about measures and units. And for even more brilliant maths tips, check out Teacher Talks online. They'll take you through topics step by step. Just search BBC Bitesize Teacher Talks. It's time for the big read. This week, it's The Diamond of Drury Lane by Julia Golding. Set in the 1790s in London's Covent Garden, this book is narrated by an orphan called Cat Royal. Living at the back of a Drury Lane theatre, she mingles with all walks of life. Plus, as the book's title suggests, there is a gripping diamond mystery too. And to tell us more is someone very special indeed. Take it away, national treasure, Joanna Lumley.
Reader, you are set to embark on an adventure about 1 hidden treasure, 2 bare-knuckle boxes, 3 enemies, and 438 rioters. It's told by an ignorant and prejudiced author, me. My name is Cat Royal. Though how I came to be called this, I will explain later. For the moment, I will start with the riot, for that is where the story really began. It was the opening night of Mr. Salter's new play, The Mad Father. I sat, as usual, curled up behind a curtain in the manager's box, watching the audience as much as I watched the stage. I love a full house. There's always so much to see. The vast auditorium was packed. All London was there, from the flash dandies in the pit to the halfpenny harlots high up in the gods. Candles blazed in the chandeliers, catching on the jewels and polished fans of the ladies in the boxes. It was a gorgeous display. Tonight, the mood of the crowd was dangerous. There was a low buzz in the room, like a hive of angry bees threatening to swarm. The theatre owner, Mr. Sheridan, was sitting hunched over the box rail, looking like thunder.
A brilliant read from Joanna Lumley to start the week. Time to discuss the extract now, and here to do that is English teacher supremo, Miss Morrison. Welcome to Bitesize Daily.
Thanks, Nihal, and what a great book The Diamond of Drury Lane is. Hooks you in from the off, doesn't it?
Yes. How did the writer do that?
Well, the first sentence is a direct personal instruction to us, reader. You are set to embark on an adventure. The writer wants to immediately excite the reader and make us eager to get stuck into the book.
I'm left with so many questions. First, the list of odd items and people. Second, why is the narrator called Cat Royal? Third, why is there a riot coming?
There's so much to take in and try and process. We're told we'll find out why Cat Royal is called that later, but she refers to herself now as an ignorant and prejudiced author. Why? As for the riot, we know who is in it. 1, hidden treasure. 2, bare-knuckle boxers. 3, enemies. And 438 rioters. But what's the riot about? It's intriguing, isn't it?
The only thing we definitely know at this stage is that the riot will take place in a theatre, and the theatre owner is called Mr. Sheridan.
Indeed. The writer has a clever way of drip-feeding some facts to the reader, yet holds so much back at the same time, and it's that makes The Diamond of Drury Lane such a puzzling and fascinating prospect.
You can say that again. If the first extract is anything to go by, this book is going to be a riot in so many ways. We'll be hearing more of the story tomorrow, and if you're interested in any other books we've read over the past few weeks in the Big Read, check out bbc.co.uk/bitesize/daily lessons. Now, Miss Morrison is staying with us, and I hope you will too, as we are swiftly moving on to our next subject. English, of course. Connect the water inlet hose directly to the cold water tap. Permitted water temperature up to 25 degrees centigrade. Pressure code for the tap should be minimum of 0. OK, sorry everyone, I got a new dishwasher recently and I just can't make sense of the instruction guide. That's just rubbish. Miss Morrison, please help me out. Instruction guides, manuals, handbooks and leaflets might seem a bit confusing sometimes, but let's be real, they do serve an important purpose, don't they?
They do. Their function is to give information or instructions clearly and succinctly. As well as household item instruction booklets, there are leaflets advertising day trips or pamphlets showing us bus times. All of these are types of guides. But it's not just a case of being able to read and understand them. It's important we know how to write one too.
Why ever would I need to do that?
OK, so let's say you're going on holiday. You might need a guide to write for your neighbour on how to look after your pet while you're away. Or if you want to have a video call with a family member, but they have no idea how to use a software or app, you could write them a guide on how to do it.
It would have to be a very good guide for my mum, no disrespect to my mum, to make sense of video calling.
Well, in that case, let's see how we'd write the best guide possible. The main things to think about are: a guide is likely to use sections separated by subheadings. The subheadings tend to be short and bold to highlight important information. A guide might use images that support the text. The language is likely to include imperative verbs.
Now, of course, I know this, but for those people watching at home, what is an imperative verb?
It's a form of verb that makes a command. So, for example, put your pen down, go outside.
Or in the case of trying to write a guide on video calling for my mum, stop covering the microphone with your hand. Point the camera at your whole face, not just your forehead, mum.
Yeah, exactly, that sort of thing. Let's take a look at an example of a good guide. This one is about stargazing, which the BBC produced with the Open University during Stargazing Live. You can see it's well structured. After the welcome page, we've got a nice big heading, followed by a subheading.
What's the purpose of subheadings?
Well, it's typical for a guide to use subheadings so the reader can spot the key points at a glance.
And then we've got some bullet points.
Yeah, it's nice to break up with bullet points as a big block of text can really put people reading off the content. It also has its keywords highlighted in a different colour so the reader can pick out the most important points quickly. We've got some pictures here to help make things even clearer. And finally, there are instructions on where to go for more information too.
Great. Thanks very much, Miss Morrison. I better get cracking with the how-to guide for my mum so we can finally have a video call where I can actually see her and hear her all at the same time. And don't forget, if you want to know even more about English, check out Teacher Talks online. They'll take you through topics step by step. Just search BBC Bitesize Teacher Talks. But before we move on, let's look at some other real-life guides.
These are just the instructions to tell you how to remove an engine out of a minibus. As an engineer, we're working off instructions all day, every day. It's just simple instructions. You've got step 1 to 22, and following them steps, you'll have an engine removed within half an hour. It just makes the job a lot quicker.
Here in the meeting room, we do have conference evacuation procedure. Evacuate all guests from meeting rooms and breakout areas towards the nearest fire exit. Close all doors and windows. Assist guests to the fire assembly point and check with each function organizer that all delegates have been accounted for. The point is that these instructions are clear, straight and direct.
This is the recipe folder, and this is where we have all the recipes for our left bank restaurant. We've got it all bullet pointed here. You have to follow them one by one, and you have to follow it very carefully because you can easily go wrong with these recipes.
Right, it's history time, and today we're looking at the Industrial Revolution, which massively shaped the world we live in today. If you've ever travelled on a train or walked along a canal, then you've witnessed some of the results of this important historical era. Between 1750 and 1850, Britain saw some huge changes, and in doing so, became the world's first industrial nation. For starters, we saw the introduction of train lines and rail transport, so if people wanted to go long distances, they didn't have to spend days on end rattling about in the back of a horse and cart. So, how did it all happen, and what changed? Let's take a look.
Before 1750, the British economy was mainly about farming. Most people lived in the countryside and made goods in their homes. Roads were just dirt tracks, and the fastest form of land transport was the horse and carriage. But everything was about to get much more high-tech and impressive. Britain was about to experience the Industrial Revolution. For a start, there were lots of new inventions which mechanised textile production. This sped up manufacturing and moved industry from the home into purpose-built factories. The impressive-sounding power loom was invented in 1784 and revolutionised the world of weaving. The machines in these new factories were powered by yet another invention, the steam engine. The work a skilled weaver had done with their feet and hands could now be done mechanically. The factories needed to transport their raw materials, so from the late 1700s, dirt tracks became roads and the first canals were built. Then, in 1825, the first railways appeared, which changed Britain massively. Back in 1700, it would take you days to get from London to Manchester. By 1880, it was measured in hours. As industry developed and factories were built, people moved from the countryside into ever-expanding towns and cities. The British population grew astronomically, and with it, the demand for food. So farms had to get bigger and more efficient, and new farm practices meant food production increased. The Industrial Revolution made everything bigger and faster. Britain became a huge trading nation, and by 1914 the British Empire covered a fifth of the world.
So there we have it. Changes affected all aspects of working life, and many people moved from farming jobs into industrial factory jobs. Now, as we know, things are changing all the time, but the main thing here is that lots of things changed very fast. That's why we call it a revolution. If these changes had happened slowly over a long period of time, it would simply be an evolution. New inventions like the steam engine came along. This powered new machines, and more goods could be produced quickly and cheaply. This led to a huge rise in population, and many people moved from the countryside into the growing towns and cities of northern England. Canals and railways sprang up too, which connected the country better. So next time you're taking a stroll along a canal, think of all the goods that were transported along it hundreds of years ago and how our early ability to do this shaped the world we live in now. Well, that's it for you 11 and 12-year-olds. Thanks for joining us. But remember, the brain cell boosting opportunities don't end here. For more on what we've covered today, head to the BBC Bitesize website now for brilliant tutorials, videos and quizzes. But before we move on to the 12 to 13-year-olds, here are some final words of wisdom from our in-house health guru.
Quick tip from me, Dr. Rada. If you're not the best at PE or it's not really your thing, don't worry. Being active is still really, really important, and it doesn't matter what you do right now. The main thing is that you get going, you get your body moving to help yourself feel better, to focus better on your studies, and also just to be in a great mood. So it might be dancing, it might be jumping about, it might be whatever you fancy, but just do something. Get active, get up, get moving, and don't worry about what it looks like or anything else. The most important thing is that you feel good.
Right, hands up. Who's 12? Who's 13? Well, I'm neither. In fact, I'm older than both of those ages put together, but hopefully you are, as this is your time. So don't go anywhere. In fact, stay right where you are. And what's coming up is guaranteed to boost your brain cells. To kick your week off just right, we've got Motivational Monday from footy freestyler Harriet Pavlou. Our first subject is maths, where we're converting measures. We'll then tackle some persuasive writing in English and round off with the Industrial Revolution in history. We'll also flip open our brilliant Big Read of the Week, A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. So, let's get started. Morning has broken. Monday's here again. The weekend's over, but hey, every day feels like a weekend now, doesn't it? We're setting a course for Positivity Island now and doing it with the help of some Motivational Monday. This time, we're crossing to football freestyler Harriet Pavlou.
So with me, the first thing I do is when I wake up, I make sure that my brain thinks positive. So if I have a negative thought, I just kind of say, no, I'm not having that. Let's think positive. How can I make the most of these strange times? I'm at home, but I'm going to make the most of it. You can spend more time with your family. You can learn to bake. You can learn a new language. There are so many things that you can do. So I want to encourage you, stay motivated, stay positive in your thoughts, aim higher, okay? So with me, I'm always aiming higher. Even though I'm at home, I'm still trying to train as much as I can. I am spending more hours, in fact, training because my time is just, I've got so much time, I'm able to train a lot more. So make the most out of the negative situation. All right, guys, stay blessed.
From motivational football freestylers to motivational mathematicians, it's the one and only Mr. Brown. Welcome. So, I know we are looking at measures in maths today, but what aspect exactly?
Well, we're going to look at using conversion factors today. This is the process by which we convert one unit of measurement to another unit of measurement. Let's fill in this table. So, how many millimetres are there in 1 centimetre?
10.
And how many centimetres are there in 1 metre?
100.
And how many metres are there in 1 kilometre?
1,000.
Excellent. So, what you've just done is you've given me the conversion factors. Now, these are really important numbers because we use them to convert between the measurements and we can either multiply or divide.
A simple way you explain things is converting me to liking maths even more, Mr. Brown. But before we get into some real-world uses for conversion factors, why don't we swat up on the basics using this animated example?
Converting measures. This palm tree is 314 centimetres tall. To convert this measurement, first, check the number of smaller units, millimetres, that make up the larger unit, centimetres. There are 10 millimetres in 1 centimetre, so 10 is the conversion factor. So we multiply the height of the tree by the conversion factor. 314 times 10 is 3,140 millimetres. To convert from centimetres to metres again, check the number of smaller units, centimetres, needed to make the larger unit, metres. There are 100 centimetres in 1 metre, so this time the conversion factor is 100. To convert up to a larger unit, we divide by the conversion factor. So 314 divided by 100 is 3.14 metres.
Right, so Mr. Brown, we've introduced conversion factors and how they help us convert numbers from one unit into another, like millimetres to centimetres or centimetres to metres. But are they useful in everyday life?
Definitely. Conversion factors are really useful to know when you need to, say, order parts for a DIY job. Builders, roofers, carpet fitters and tilers use them all the time. Take this bathroom wall, for example. It clearly needs retiling.
Oof, yeah, you can say that again. Nasty.
Now, the wall is 2 metres by 2 metres, and we want to use these new snazzy tiles, which are 20 centimetres by 20 centimetres each. So, how many tiles do you think we need?
Well, for a start, you probably need blue ones, but I have no idea. But I guess it would be easier to work out if we convert them into the same unit first.
That's a fantastic idea. Let's work in centimetres squared. Now, we already know the measurements of the tiles in centimetres is 20 centimetres by 20 centimetres. So if we times them both together, we get an area for this tile, which is 400 centimetres squared. I'm just going to write it on it. Now, can you work out the area of the wall in centimetres squared?
Yes, I think I can, Mr. Brown. It is 2 metres by 2 metres. There are 100 centimetres in each metre, so we multiply each 2 metres by 100 to get 200 centimetres. So the wall is 200 centimetres by 200 centimetres. Times them together and you get a total wall area of 40,000 centimetres squared. So, how do we work out how many of these tiles we need to fill the wall space?
Well, we simply divide the total area of the wall by the area of each tile. So the area of the wall was 40,000 centimetres squared, and the area of one tile is 400 centimetres squared. So if we divide 40,000 by 400, we get...
100.
Indeed. So, Nihal, we would need to go and buy 100 tiles to tile this wall. And we only got there by using conversion factors.
Now, if that's helped you on your journey to becoming a measuring maestro like Mr. Brown, then factor in some time later to visit the Bitesize website. Read the brilliant explainer pages, then test yourself by tackling questions like this one.
If a swimming pool drains at the rate of 2.5 metre cubed per minute and takes 5 hours 20 minutes to empty, what volume of water was in the pool originally?
Let's break it down. A metre cubed means a volume 1 metre by 1 metre by 1 metre. A rate of 2.5 metre cubed per minute means 2.5 metre cubed in every 1 minute. That's what purr means. I remember it like this. A cat purrs once in every breath. Purr means in one. OK, enough with a cat. Now our pool takes 5 hours 20 minutes to empty, right? So how many minutes is that?
Well, there's 60 minutes in an hour, so 5 of those is 300 minutes.
Plus the extra 20 equals 320 minutes.
The pool drains at the rate of 2.5 metres cubed per minute. So now we can work out how much water was in the pool originally by calculating 320 lots of 2.5 metres cubed.
Which is 800 metres cubed.
Correctamundo!
This week's big read is A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. At the heart of this science fiction and fantasy epic is a magical journey that Meg Murray and her brother Charles embark on. Invited by a strange visitor in the night, they travel through time and space to discover a battle taking place between good and evil. Reading our first extract of the week is a footballer with an eye for goal and a love of funky celebrations. It's Manchester United's Jesse Lingard.
It was a dark and stormy night. In her attic bedroom, Margaret Murray, wrapped in an old patchwork quilt, sat on the foot of her bed and watched the trees tossing in a frenzied lashing of the wind. Behind the trees, clouds scudded frantically across the sky. Every few moments, the moon ripped through them, creating wraith-like shadows that raced along the ground. The house shook. Wrapped in her quilt, Meg shook. She wasn't usually afraid of the weather. It's not just the weather, she thought. It's the weather on top of everything else, on top of me, on top of Meg Murray doing everything wrong. School was all wrong. She'd been dropped down to the lowest section in her grade. That morning, one of her teachers had said crossly, "Really, Meg? I don't understand how a child with parents as brilliant as yours are supposed to have such a poor student. If you don't manage to do a little better, you'll have to stay back next year." During lunch, she fooled around a little to try and make herself feel better. And one of the girls said scornfully, "After all, Meg, we aren't babies anymore. Why do you always act like one?"
Thanks, Jesse. It's definitely an intriguing book, isn't it? And to help me make sense of that extract, we've got English teacher extraordinaire. Miss Morrison is on hand. What did you think of it?
Oh, I love the escapism you get by reading this story. It's otherworldly in so many ways, but yeah, it's rooted in everyday emotions.
From this first extract, we find out that Meg is the central character. But what do we really learn about her life?
Well, the first thing I asked myself was, what time is Meg living in? She sleeps in an attic room and under a quilt, not a duvet. So does this mean it's set in more distant times? We'll see. The other thing that leaps out is that Meg appears to be a deep thinker and has some worries.
Yeah, her school grades have dropped and she seems concerned about what her peers may think of her.
Definitely, and we sense that she's got the weight of the world on her shoulders. The writer's done a really clever thing in opening this extract. The language used to set the scene mirrors Meg's worries.
The dark, stormy night, the lashing wind, and the frantically moving clouds.
Exactly. This use of the weather as an analogy for the mood is really well done. It's a technique Shakespeare often used. The author links the storm to emotional turmoil.
I can't wait for the next extract tomorrow, but if you can't wait till then, why not visit your local library online to get the audio or ebook? And if you're interested in any other books we've read over the past few weeks in the Big Read, check out bbc.co.uk/bitesize/daily lessons. Now, Miss Morrison is staying right here because it's time for our second core subject of the day, English, of course. I'm going to test you and see if you can guess our English topic. Ready? This poor, defenceless Ted needs a home. Lost, forgotten, and cast aside, he sits waiting for someone to take him and care for him. Do you want to see this toy left alone forever? Did I get you? Do you suddenly feel like you must give this poor Teddy a loving home at once? If not, I really need to work on my persuasive language. Thankfully, you're here, Miss Morrison. So what is the key to good, persuasive writing?
Well, when you're writing to persuade, your goal is to convince the reader of your viewpoint. You might use persuasive language in a speech or an article, an advert, even a letter. It's a really useful skill to learn as it essentially gives you the tools to get people to agree with you. So you need to use passionate, emotive words to get people going, like, I need or encourage you to believe me, or you are bound to agree with me, as I've researched all the facts.
What about if I also threw in, a little sweetener? I could write something saying, I'll give you people 20 quid if you agree with me. And if they don't, then, of course, I'm going to scribble all over your homework.
While bribery and blackmail can be techniques to try and get what you want, they are morally unjust, so I'd strongly advise against using them. Plus, there are far cleverer and more effective ways to persuade without stooping to that.
Morally unjust. Sounds good. Well, that's good, because I don't have 20 quid on me anyway. Thanks very much, Miss Morrison. And if you want to get to grips with other topics in English, check out Teacher Talks online. Just search BBC Bitesize Teacher Talks. Before we move on, let's take a look at how we might write a persuasive letter.
I'm supposed to give a speech, but I don't want to, so I'm writing to Esme to persuade her that she should do it. I'll demonstrate a few techniques that you can apply to make your writing persuasive. A mnemonic is a tool to help you remember something. Our mnemonic is persuade. Each letter in that word stands for a writing technique that you can use to persuade. First up, P for personal tone.
Dear Esme, you're confident and you speak beautifully. I'm not, and I don't. Would you mind delivering the speech next week?
The personal pronouns you and I can help develop a tone which will resonate with the reader. Emotive language will also help, and that's the E in persuade.
People love your speeches, and you're brilliant at helping them understand complex ideas.
Emotive language creates feelings in the reader. I've said helping people to make Esme feel more positive about giving a speech. R is for rhetorical questions.
What if I embarrass myself again?
Rhetorical questions do not require an answer, but they do help the reader to pause, think, and hopefully agree. S is for say it again. Repeat important points for emphasis, like my points about speaking well and confidence.
You're much more confident and better at speaking than me. Well, that's sweet.
U is for undermine opposing arguments. Consider objections and counter them. My reader might believe that by me giving the speech, this will make me better at public speaking.
I know the only way to improve is to give speeches, but I still get so nervous my voice shakes. I've been practicing at home and I'll be ready for the next one, I promise. Wow, I had no idea.
This lets them know that I've considered alternative points of view, while also undermining confidence in those positions. On to A for anecdotes. This is a fancy word for short, amusing stories.
Remember when I knocked over the podium and the audience couldn't stop laughing? It was a complete disaster.
An anecdote can make a reader respond sympathetically while illustrating your point. D is for direct address, where you make your reader feel as if it's been written especially for them.
You are the only person who can do this.
Finally, E for exaggeration to drive your point home.
You're a million times better than me. You're the J.K. Rowling of speech writing. True. I guess it's up to me.
She'll do it. Persuasion complete.
Now, there are a lot of things we rely on today, like trains to get us from A to B, or factories to make and package our food. But how did these things come about and when? Today we're going to go back to the Industrial Revolution, which happened between 1750 and 1850. In this time, we saw people moving from farming to factories, and new inventions like the steam engine powering new machines so we could make things quickly and cheaply. The population grew, cities developed, and canals and railways sprang up to help transport everything around. But why did it happen here in Britain before anywhere else? Let's take a look.
Why did this happen in Britain? Was it because the British were uniquely clever? No. Was it because the country seemed to be half built on coal? Not really. It was because the British had developed a new political system which limited monarchy, gave everybody legal rights, allowed the free flow of ideas, and ensured that British geniuses owned their ideas so they could make a buck.
So as we saw, though it's easy to give coal and steam the credit for the Industrial Revolution, brains were another key factor. So Isaac Newton got inspired by a falling apple and discovered gravity. And Robert Boyle made important discoveries about the behaviour of gases. And I won't ask how he did that. Oh, you are disgusting. Anyway, these discoveries were harnessed and turned into business ideas by men like James Watt and business partner Matthew Boulton, who made steam engines. Britain's political system also played a part. At the time, businessmen ran businesses without Parliament really getting involved. Without censorship from the government or church, ideas flowed freely. These all contributed to big changes in Britain, but these changes were better for some than others. Many children went on to work in horrendous conditions in mills and factories. So when school is back on and you're dragging yourself out of bed, just be glad you're not being sent to sweep underneath a deadly loom in a cotton factory. OK, 12 and 13s, that's a wrap. Today we squeezed in some tasty conversion factors, a smattering of persuasive writing and a dollop of the Industrial Revolution. If you want an extra helping, log on to the Bitesize website. Now, over to our in-house doctor with some nice advice on keeping in touch with people.
If you're like me, you'll be missing your friends, but with challenge comes opportunity. So why not do what I've been doing, which is connecting with a group of friends on video call and working out together. That way you get active, you feel good, you see your friends, and hopefully you'll get some quite funny screenshots too.
We've reached the final part of the show, and that means we're going to take it easy, clock watch and coast through. No way. Not on Bitesize Daily. And anyway, I know you 13 and 14-year-olds are raring to go, and for good reason, as we've got amazing experts, top teachers, famous faces galore. School's off, learning's not. We kick off and scrum down with England Rugby Union coach Eddie Jones, who'll motivate you to set goals and achieve them. Next, we're tackling measures in maths. Then in English, we're comparing differences amongst UK newspapers. We'll take a trip back in time to explore the Industrial Revolution in history. And we have the big read, which this week is the gripping A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. What a lineup! Now, to be honest, Mondays are rubbish. But right now, every day is the same, right? And that means Mondays are as good as any other day. In fact, they might just be the best day of the week, because on Bitesize Daily, they start with some Monday motivation. Today's tips come from an awesome expert in keeping motivated and getting organised. It's England Rugby head coach, Eddie Jones.
In this period of time is obviously difficult, so don't be afraid to think sometimes you're not at your best. But the best way for me to keep motivated, I'm sure it can work for you, is each week set yourself a goal, understand how you're going to achieve it, and then make a plan and follow that plan, guys. Sometimes the plan gets disrupted, but stick to it. For this week, I'm really looking at our England games very closely to see how we can improve our attacking in the 50 metres closest to the try line. So we spent a lot of time looking at that, and we feel like we're coming up with better solutions. So you can come up with better solutions too. All the best.
Well, it's not very often you get to start your day with some inspirational words of wisdom from an international rugby coach, is it? And Eddie certainly knows what he's talking about, as he's got the highest winning ratio in the history of England coaches. Now, I'm definitely ready for our first subject. So let me introduce a man who has the measure of all maths. It is the marvellous Mr. Brown.
Funny you should mention the word measure, as today we're going to look at measurements for speed and the formula you need to know when calculating it.
Oh, OK. So you could use it to work out the speed of, say, Bolt.
What you saying?
What am I saying? Usain Bolt, the living legend, of course.
That's what I just said. Usain.
Ah, sorry. Yeah, him. Now, before I bolt off the start line too easily, why don't we brush up on some speed formula basics? On your marks, get set, watch.
Speed, distance, and time. To calculate speed, which is how fast something travels over a period of time, we use this formula. Speed equals the distance travelled divided by the time taken. You can also rearrange this formula to find out the distance travelled, or the time taken. To help remember these equations, you can use a formula triangle. Just cover the value required. The formula will be revealed by the location of the other two values. So, for time, you see distance above speed, so time equals distance divided by speed. And for distance, you see speed alongside time, so the formula is speed multiplied by time.
That was very handy indeed, but I'm eager to learn more, Mr. Brown.
Well, before playing that clip, you brought up a great example, Nihal. Let's consider this guy, Usain Bolt, the world record holder for 100-metre sprint. Do you know what his time was?
9.5, something like that.
9.58 seconds.
Not bad.
So, we know how far he's run, 100 metres, and we know how long it took him, 9.58 seconds. But what was his speed on average throughout that race?
I feel a formula coming on.
Now, the formula is speed is equal to distance divided by time. OK, so to work out Usain Bolt's speed in metres per second, we would do 100 divided by 9.58.
10.4 metres per second. Hang on. So he's pretty much running roughly the length of a double-decker bus every second for 10 seconds? This is amazing.
Indeed. Now, sometimes you might know the speed of something, but not know either the distance travelled or the time taken. Now, if we look at the formula I wrote on the board earlier, right, speed is equal to distance divided by time. It can be rearranged quite easily to figure out the distance. Now, what we would do is, because distance is divided by time, we'd do the inverse operations. So we'd multiply both sides by time. So we'd get speed multiplied by time is equal to distance multiplied by time divided by time. Those would cancel out, so you would be left with the distance is equal to speed multiplied by time. Now, some people like to remember which formula to use by looking at this handy little triangle.
Can you give us another real-world example?
Sure. Picture you at the gym running on the treadmill.
OK, yep.
So you've set the speed on the treadmill at 5 metres per second.
Yeah.
It's a little bit faster than that, I think.
Yeah, I know, easy. OK.
Now, how long can you keep going at that speed? I'm timing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
OK. How far would I have run?
Well, let's use this triangle this time. To calculate the distance, it is speed multiplied by time. So 5 metres per second multiplied by 12 seconds equals 60 metres.
Is that all? No chance of beating Bolt's record anytime soon then, is there? Oh, well. Now, while I go and cool down, dab the sweat off my shirt, why don't you head to the BBC Bitesize website? There you'll find stacks more info on measures, from units to conversion factors, and even more tips on formulas, like this.
Distance, speed and time. As long as you have 2 out of 3, the triangle of truth will show you the third. But warning, you need to keep the units consistent. So if you are dealing with distances in kilometers and time in hours, then calculate the speed in kilometers per hour. And time doesn't neatly convert into decimal places. Remember, 100 minutes are not 1 hour. When moving from hours to minutes or minutes to seconds, divide by 60. And going from minutes to hours or seconds to minutes, multiply by 60. For example, 15 minutes is 15 divided by 60, which is 1/4 of an hour, or 0.25 as a decimal. So, remember the triangle. Keep units consistent and be careful converting time into decimal.
It's that wonderful time again, the big read. If, like me, you turn to books for escapism and relaxation, then stay tuned, as this week's brilliant book is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This is a heart-pounding crime thriller which twists and turns throughout. Central character Pippa wants to crack a case, but what will she uncover? To tell us more is someone very special indeed. Take it away.
Pip knew where they lived. Everyone in Little Kilton knew where they lived. Their home was like the town's own haunted house. People's footsteps quickened as they walked by, and their words strangled and died in their throats. Shrieking children would gather on their walk home from school, daring one another to run up and to touch the front gate. But it wasn't haunted by ghosts, just three sad people trying to live their lives as before. A house not haunted by flickering lights or spectral falling chairs, but by dark spray-painted letters of Scum Family and stone-shattered windows. Pip had always wondered why they didn't move. Not that they had to. They hadn't done anything wrong. But she didn't know how they lived like that. Pip knew a great many things. She knew that hippopotama monstrosa quipediliophobia was a technical term for the fear of long words. She knew that babies were born without kneecaps. She knew verbatim the best quotes from Plato and Cato, and that there were more than 4,000 types of potato. But she didn't know how the Sings found the strength to stay here, in Kilton, under the weight of so many widened eyes, of the comments whispered, just loudly enough to be heard, of neighbourly small talk, never stretching into long talk anymore.
I don't know about you, no, like, genuinely I don't, we haven't met, but I've got so many questions. Luckily, here to help answer them is English teacher Miss Morrison. Hello.
Hi, ni hao. What a big read you've chosen. I love this book. It's well written, it's encapsulated, it's pulsating.
Yes, indeed. Now, so much to get into. Pip, or Pippa, is our narrator here, an intelligent, articulate person who is seemingly out to prove something.
Yeah, we're told about this house, the town's own haunted house, but it's not haunted by ghosts. Instead, three sad people trying to live their lives as before. Begs the question, what are the Sings accused of doing? Why are they being denounced as scum family by the local community? But most interestingly, why is Pip so sure that the Sing family are innocent?
Is this a story about going against the grain, then?
At this stage, I think we're all asking that. I certainly think there's an innocent until proven guilty theme Pip is keen to explore further. Something bad has clearly happened, but has the truth really been told this far?
Well, we will hear more from A Good Girl's Guide to Murder tomorrow. If you're keen to read more before then, why not log on to your local online library and search for the audio ebook? And if you're interested in any other books we've had in the Big Read, check out bbc.co.uk/bitesize/daily lessons. Now, sit tight, Miss Morrison, and I will see you in just a few ticks when we'll be diving into our second subject of the day, English. Stop the press, it's time for some English, and we've got some seriously astounding headlines in today's edition from our in-house English genius, Miss Morrison. So, Miss Morrison, what's the scoop?
Well, today, we're looking at different types of newspapers. There are so many on offer, and their differences really define them.
What do we call the different types, then?
Well, the top 10 best-selling newspapers can be divided into two categories, image-led and text-led. Let's focus on image-led, first of all. I've got a few examples here. These are what we call tabloids, and they can be subdivided into two groups, red tops and middle market dailies.
And are the red tops called red tops because there's red at the top? I worked that out by myself.
Well done, correct. As you can see here, the red tops are the Sun, the Daily Star and the Daily Mirror. We call them this because, as you said, they've got red mastheads. That's these bits. They are the large font title at the top of the front page of the newspaper's title. The Red Tops do report on politics and international news, but they tend to include more celebrity gossip and scandal. They write short stories using simple language. They tend to have more pictures than other newspapers too.
And what about middle market dailies?
Well, examples of these include the Daily Express and the Daily Mail. The middle market bit refers to the readership of these newspapers, which is somewhere between the Red Tops and the broadsheets.
Ah, broadsheets. I know of those. They're the huge ones.
Traditionally, yeah, though some have slimmed down a bit nowadays. The main thing to remember is that broadsheets are text-led newspapers. These include The Times, The Telegraph and The Guardian. These have higher news content than the Red Tops, they cost more to buy, and they have a lower circulation.
And the style of writing is quite different in these too.
That's right. The writing is more formal. They tend to have longer sentences, longer paragraphs, and more articles offering in-depth analysis on the stories they're reporting on.
OK, I get that. Thanks, Miss Morrison. Now, if you want to brush up on more topics in English, check out Teacher Talks online. Just search BBC Bitesize Teacher Talks. And of course, there's loads more about newspapers on the Bitesize website. Picture this. You're enjoying a lovely sleep and you're startled awake by the sound of your alarm. You really want to hit snooze, but your mum shouts up the stairs that it's time for you to get up, grab your shovel and go off to risk your life working down the mines. Well, don't fancy that? How about crawling around, cleaning the floor of a textile factory, breathing in dust and risking having your arm sliced off by a loom? Neither sounds great. That's exactly what many children ended up finding themselves doing during the Industrial Revolution. That's right, it's time for some history. And as you'll soon see, it could be a lot worse than having to put up with your annoying siblings at home all day. The invention of engines led to huge changes in Britain between 1750 and 1850. Suddenly, we could make things in factories and transport them across the country on railways and canals. This was the start of the Industrial Revolution.
Like most revolutions, the Industrial Revolution would have many casualties. Men and women and children as young as 8 or 9 worked 12-hour days in vast factories. Many were maimed or even killed by the new machinery, and they were working by artificial light and the factory clock, not the rhythms of nature. Protests were widespread and angry. Every great new technology produces changes in society and politics, and these new engines didn't just push pistons and locomotives, they pushed ahead trade unionism, town planning, political reform, new schools, democracy. Quite powerful things, steam engines.
The Industrial Revolution triggered the fastest social transformation in British history. People flooded from the countryside to work in urban factories. Within a century, Britain went from a country with just 2 cities with more than 50,000 people to a country with 29 cities of this size.
Fascinating stuff. So as we saw, rapid changes completely changed the face of Britain, which for some meant new wealth and new opportunities, but not for everyone. For starters, there were no regulations or rules about working or health and safety. There was also the issue of germs. Despite some pretty nasty diseases going around at the time, there was no social distancing back then. People were cramped together in overcrowded slums in the cities and water was contaminated. No one knew about germs and they probably weren't washing their hands. There was also the issue of pollution, with factories billowing out smoke all over the place. Even though this was more than 200 years ago, these are still some of the issues we grapple with today. It's important to look back to see how far we've come, though. So next time you think it's a bit rubbish that you can't go out and see your mates, remember those teenagers working grueling 12-hour days. Makes home learning seem like a breeze in comparison. Well, that's all we have time for today. Don't forget, if we've sparked your interest in any of the topics we've covered, head to the Bitesize website, where there's loads more activities, games and quizzes. If you've missed anything in today's show, it will be available on iPlayer for you to watch. It's easy to find. Just search Bitesize. Or if you'd prefer to watch the show on a tablet, BBC iPlayer is free to download in any app store. And if you want to let us know how you're getting on, use the hashtag BBC Bitesize Daily. I hope we've helped you feel positive about your schoolwork for the day ahead. Now, I'll leave you with a message from our very own Doctor on Call. Bye-bye.
Quick stress-busting tip from me, Dr. Rada. If you are feeling a bit low or anxious or stressed out, then a short burst of exercise can really, really help. So, whatever you're doing, get up, do 30 seconds of star jumps. It will really help you feel better, more invigorated. Obviously, don't knock anything over while you're doing it, but it's a really great way to just fit in all that exercise and get that daily exercise and being active into your day.
Catch all your favourite CBBC shows every weekday on CBBC.
What are you doing?
Join in the fun at 5 o'clock, when you can catch up with your favourite faces every weekday.
And more!
That's all of your faves, and always at 5 o'clock.
This time the lab is scarier, and more dangerous than ever before.
So switch on the fun with your faves at 5, weekdays on CBBC.